Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here this week. I promised you all a tremendous, innovative, and exciting virtual conference, and I hope you all agree we've delivered. This has been an annual conference unlike any other. For the first time, we've come together from the comforts of our home, but that hasn't stopped us, and that hasn't stopped any of you. There are more than 3,000 attendees at this year's conference, joining us from 48 states and 8 countries. And we even have more than 700 people joining us for the first time this year. And we look forward to the day when we can join together again in person. This has been a year of painful and difficult upheaval for all of us. And at 0 to 3, it has been no exception. But our work together, on behalf of the youngest among us, is far too important to stop during this time. We know that your work is more challenging now than ever, and that from childcare to healthcare, many of you are on the front lines. We've been working to meet your priorities and your most pressing concerns, providing resources to use with parents and caregivers, and advocating for policies that safeguard our field. It has also been a particularly painful year for Black and Brown Americans. The death of George Floyd, of Breonna Taylor, of Ahmaud Arbery, and too many others we'll never know, have driven home for many the centuries of pain and racism in America. And to make matters worse, COVID-19 has taken a terrible toll on Black and Brown communities already struggling too often with poverty, inequity, and systemic racism. These issues, which have come to the forefront of our national conversation this summer, are deeply tied to the work that we all do. The adverse impacts of racism begin even before birth. Like a virus, racism and the hate, intolerance, and indifference it breeds are highly contagious, spreading from person to person and from generation to generation. More than half of America's babies are children of color. We must embrace the changing portrait of our nation's babies and commit to end the racism that affects not only them, but all of us. What we do because we want every baby to have a strong start in life. To fulfill that mission, we must address the structural racism that creates huge economic and social disparities in our country, so that where and to whom a baby is born does not determine their future. We at 0 to 3 recognize that Black lives matter, and we recommit to the efforts we've undertaken to address equity in our work and in our workplace. Further, we commit to strengthening our efforts to address inequities in society through our policy and our programmatic work. This year, the concept of the essential worker has gotten quite a bit of attention in our country. And if one thing has been made clear these past few months, it's that early childhood professionals, from childcare workers to child welfare advocates to child development experts, are absolutely, undeniably, all essential. With so many childcare programs being shut down this year, we've heard stories from families who are struggling to balance work and childcare during the pandemic. Many of you likely have stories of your own, and so many families have become more aware this year of how valuable the work is that childcare providers do on a daily basis. Early childhood education is an essential profession, and this pandemic has proven that. Throughout the past few months, we've asked families to share their joys and challenges with us. The pandemic calls for us to be creative about staying connected, focusing on our well-being, and sharing information with each other. We all want to do all we can to listen, support, and strengthen our communities. Like Katie from Utah, who's concerned about the employees at her daughter's childcare, who have to worry about their own families while relying on hourly pay. Like Christina from Texas, who needed to quit her job when her center went part-time to accommodate valid needs for social distancing. And like Sheila from Connecticut, who had her childcare center closed, but still had to pay weekly fees, while her husband had to leave his job to stay home with their daughter. So many families would be lost without the hard work of their childcare providers. Indeed, many families have lost without their providers this year. That's why we at 0 to 3 have been fighting on Capitol Hill, virtually, of course, to get Congress to provide the support the childcare system needs, not just to make it through this crisis, but to come back stronger and more equitable after it's over. We've fought hard for the $50 billion the industry needs, pushing members of both parties to stand up for families and early childhood professionals. We've taken our annual Strolling Thunder event virtual, helping families connect with their senators and members of Congress over Zoom and letting them tell their stories firsthand. And we've worked to connect elected officials directly to professionals like some of you so they can hear what you need with their own ears. Unfortunately, while many families have experienced newfound difficulties during this pandemic, others have found it only intensified the struggles they were already facing. And while the pandemic has raged on, we have been working hard to protect every baby and toddler from its influence. That includes children currently in the foster care system, many of whom don't know if they'll ever have a stable home again. Every 6 minutes, a baby or toddler in the United States is removed from their parents due to abuse or neglect and sent to live in a new home. That hasn't changed just because of a pandemic. In fact, we've seen increases in domestic violence and the use of substances used by parents to push out the pain in their lives. Thankfully, passionate, caring people continue to do incredible work throughout the country, including those utilizing our Safe Babies Court Team approach to help babies and toddlers find their forever homes faster. Our team is providing a crucial platform for judges, attorneys, social workers, caregivers, providers, and other stakeholders to work together to connect babies and their families with the support and services they need to promote healthy child development and to ensure higher rates of reunification and permanency. The Safe Babies Court Team's approach is based around bringing everyone to the table to help babies and toddlers. This pandemic has proven that everyone wants to be at that table, even if it's virtual, and is willing to do whatever it takes to get that job done. For the families we are committed to helping, these collaborative partners are absolutely essential. The pandemic has impacted every family from every walk of life. Like most caregivers across the country, Emily and her husband faced the difficult decision of going into work or risking their family's health in rural Arizona. Their 3-year-old son, Timothy, has several health conditions that make him especially vulnerable to COVID-19. And when Timothy's dad was exposed to the coronavirus at his job as a cook, he self-quarantined at home for 2 weeks away from the rest of the family, but then decided the risk to Timothy wasn't worth it. So he left his job altogether. But no matter what life throws at families, we know there's one place they can always feel safe and secure, and that's in their pediatrician's office. Emily and her family are supported by the Healthy Steps specialist, Michelle. Michelle helps Emily foster Timothy's healthy development while also navigating health insurance and tracking down community resources like diapers or food. At the outset of the pandemic, Michelle doubled down on the support she provides families and researched and collated almost 100 free early education resources for the families she serves. And for her fellow Healthy Steps specialists, she shared them with them across the country. We're proud to know that our Healthy Steps sites have remained open, and our Healthy Steps specialists, like Michelle, are charging on and doing everything in their power to ensure that family needs, like the sudden job loss or food insecurity, are being taken care of. And while there are reports of pediatric practices closing their doors and drastic declines in vaccinations, our Healthy Steps sites remain open and ready to support families amid this crisis. With so much disruption and sadness in children's lives right now, Healthy Steps teams are tirelessly working to support families in need. And despite the difficulties they're facing, the stories we're hearing from the Healthy Steps sites are nothing short of inspirational. The work of our Healthy Steps teams and pediatric offices across the country are going to be essential in protecting babies and toddlers from this damage and ensuring they grow up healthy and strong. This has been a difficult year for all of us. We've all lost colleagues, friends, family. Over 200,000 Americans have died this year due to COVID-19, as well as over 1 million people worldwide. None of us have been immune. And we have lost some of the finest leaders in our field. In January, we lost Ron Lally, a pioneer in infant toddler development who directed one of the first home visiting programs for infants in the United States and played a key role in the design and implementation of Early Head Start. Ron was the last living founder of 0 to 3 and remained actively involved as a director emeritus. I first met Ron 25 years ago when he and Jeree Paul interviewed me for this job. And over the years, he became a colleague, a mentor, and a friend, one whose memory I still cherish today. In March, we lost our Rebecca Shamoun-Shinak, a longtime board member and founder of 0 to 3 and a founding director of the New York 0 to 3 network. Rebecca was a pioneer of reflective supervision and of integrating mindfulness into the fields of early childhood mental health and care. Rebecca was a giant in our field who had a special passion for babies and toddlers and an unyielding commitment to supporting the professionals who serve them, and a true friend and mentor to many of us gathered here today. It was our honor earlier this week to rename our practice plenary after her so that her memory will live on through our important work. And just days ago, our dear friend and colleague, Kathleen McInerney, passed away after her battle with cancer. Kathleen served as 0 to 3's Chief Development Officer for 10 years, guiding our remarkable growth with her strategic sensibility, calming presence, diplomatic discretion, and wise counsel. Kathleen was one of the most thoughtful, decent, and caring human beings I've ever known, and she touched the lives of so many of us in so many beautiful ways. May her memory, as well as the memories of Ron, Rebecca, and all of those who we have lost this year, be a blessing to us all. Please join me for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. There's no sense sugarcoating what we've been through this year, but I believe our best days remain ahead of us. This week, 0 to 3 welcomed its new fellowship class, bringing together 16 remarkable leaders who represent the best of our field. Tomorrow, we will honor Dr. Alicia Lieberman with our Lifetime Achievement Award, an honor well deserved for a true champion of babies and toddlers. And after this week, I hope you'll take the energy and enthusiasm from this virtual conference with you as you continue your tremendous work at home. Thank you for all your dedication and commitment in what has been the most challenging of years. You have taken on responsibilities and overcome challenges that you never anticipated in your careers, and you've done so with grace and courage. You've proven to the world what we have always known. Early childhood professionals are, in every sense of the word, essential. And now it is my real pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for our science plenary, Dr. Catherine Monk from Columbia University Medical Center. Dr. Monk is a professor of medical psychology and the founding director of the newly launched initiative to embed women's mental health in Columbia's OBGYN department, where she and other mental health professionals help women with stress, depression, and anxiety across the lifespan. Her research brings together perinatal psychiatry, developmental psychobiology, and neuroscience to focus on the earliest influences on children's developmental trajectories, those that happen in utero, and how to intervene to help women and prevent the risk of mental health disorders in the future. In addition to all of her accomplishments, I'm proud to say she's also an active and engaged member of the ZTT Board of Directors. She joins us today to discuss the science of fetal origins of future child health and how development and parenting begin before birth. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome Dr. Catherine Monk.